Okay, hello everyone. My name is Jafar Dev. I work as developer relations at Composable Finance. For those of you who don't know, Composable has a parachain on Polkadot known as Composable, and we also have on Kusama known as Picasso. So some of the apps that are live on our chain are Pablo, which is a substrate DEX, and we also are the first IBC-enabled parachains in the Polkadot ecosystem. Today, I'm going to mainly cover Centauri. So Centauri refers to our implementation of IBC on Polkadot and essentially IBC everywhere. I'll be covering why we need Centauri, how we've implemented Centauri, and also a roadmap of what we expect Centauri to expand to in the future. And finally, I'll also touch on Composable's virtual machine, which is building upon Centauri. So first, why do we need Centauri? So it's sad that I always have to explain, people still have to explain why we need to build trust-minimized bridges into the ecosystem. I mean, multi-chain was hacked like 2 weeks ago. It was the third time, in fact, that they were hacked. A few hundred million again. I think it's still getting hacked today as I speak. But yeah, like hacks are the biggest things. We can't rely on trusted architecture for building bridges between different ecosystems. There's currently 0 active trustless bridges in the Polkadot ecosystem. I know there are teams working on it, but Composable has the first live between Kusama and Polkadot, and also between Cosmos chains and Polkadot. Another reason essentially is just liquidity, right? If you're a parachain and you want to spin up a parachain on Polkadot, there's literally no way of gaining liquidity for your parachain besides using the DOT or USDT from statement. So bridges are an essential space, especially if you want to bootstrap and attract users to build on Polkadot, which is why I think IBC will help with this. And then for the XCVM, essentially, once we have all these bridges live, liquidity is still fragmented amongst these ecosystems. Like you're still gonna have to manually bridge, and this leads to a bad user experience. Essentially, using a trusted bridge is just a bad user experience in the first place. Like most of the trusted bridges these days, it takes like 30 minutes. Sometimes it could take a week for your transfer to succeed. So IBC is the solution, and I'll explain why. Cool. So IBC is the native transport layer in the Cosmos ecosystem. It's only been used within the tenement consensus. It was built with the tenement consensus in mind. However, it was designed for any underlying consensus to be used in the framework. Our current roadmap, essentially, now that we have IBC live between Kusama and Polkadot, we also have IBC live as of 2 weeks ago between Cosmos and Polkadot. The next step is Ethereum 2.0. So Ethereum 2.0 is something that many people have been waiting for. There's also Near protocol, which we've worked on. However, we're prioritizing Ethereum for now. And essentially any chain that can support IBC. So if you have a light client, if you have finality proofs, and then we'll just work to adapt a relayer for that chain. So this is a bit of a technical overview of how it works between Kusama and Polkadot. So it's essentially light client-based bridging. We're using the Grandpa protocol from both ecosystems. We built IBC Palette. So Palette IBC is the first non-Cosmos working IBC stack. It's never been used outside of Cosmos. We're the first to implement it. It consists of the Grandpa light client and IBCRS. We're also the first chain using the Rust implementation of IBC. And then it's just a relayer, which is known as hyperspace in between, which is responsible for ensuring packets are delivered between both chains. So as a result, now parachains on Polkadot can communicate with parachains on Kusama. So our Cosmos connection has gone live 2 weeks ago. This means the 50+ app chains in the Cosmos ecosystem can now connect to Polkadot parachains. Some of the main ones we've already connected to, they're not live on our front end yet. The ones that are live now are Stride, Cosmos Hub, Chihuahua, and Umi, and there's a few others that we're adding in the next couple of weeks. But essentially, we plan to add as many Cosmos chains as we can to the front end. So what this means is if you want to bridge your assets between these two ecosystems, we're also implementing a multi-hop feature, which I'll discuss shortly. So yeah, essentially, like the Polkadot ecosystem has just been within itself. The Kusama ecosystem has just been everybody living within itself. However, they've never been bridged before. With Centauri, you can now bridge between the two, and you can also bridge between the Cosmos world, which is depicted in the middle. I just put screenshots. They're not really professional, but yeah, this is just an idea of what Centauri opens up for the DeFi space. Essentially, all these chains right now can communicate, and if you'd like to communicate with any of these chains, you can contact me. So this is just some statistics since Centauri's gone live. It's actually impressive to see this much activity since we don't have that many chains integrated yet into the front end. So in the next few weeks, we're going to be adding parachains to the front end, and we're also going to be adding more Cosmos chains, Cosmos Hub, Stride, a few others. So just thought it would be nice to show. Yeah, so the current status, as I mentioned, Kusama Polkadot transfers are live, Cosmos Polkadot transfers are live too. Ethereum 2.0 is a priority, so we hope to get this done by Q4. After Q4, we expect to also complete near IBC by the end of the year. And there's also a few other chains that we're working with. I don't have permission to mention them now, but we're looking at chains which will benefit the Polkadot ecosystem the most. Essentially, if you want to spin up a parachain and you want to, let's say, bridge to, you find Solana interesting. So we want to open up that connection for you, so you wouldn't have to choose between building on Solana and building on Polkadot when you essentially have a trustless bridge between the two. And also, if there's any other chains that you think would benefit from in the Polkadot ecosystem, we're happy to explore this with you. We can maybe even work on this together. So now that we have Centauri live, I mean, at Composable, we've been speaking about it for like a year and a bit. It's been a while since we launched, but we're finally there. What are the sort of opportunities that can now be completed? I'll just go over a few. But the main ones right now is just assets that can be transferred between the two ecosystems. So there's many lending protocols in the Cosmos ecosystem. I would say that DeFi is widely used in the Cosmos ecosystem more than the Polkadot ecosystem. So there's definitely things we can benefit from. If there are any parachain assets that you'd like to, list on a lending protocol, there's Umi, Nolus, Mars. Or if there are any tokens that you'd like to use, like Atom, it's another blue chip out there. Essentially, DOT has never been transferred outside of the Polkadot ecosystem. DOT is considered as a blue chip asset amongst even the Ethereum folks, right? It's one of the most liquid assets out there. So as a result of this connection, DOT can even be used to bootstrap another ecosystem. So we're excited to see how this goes. Also cross-chain NFTs, so Stargazer is probably the biggest NFT platform in the Cosmos ecosystem. They're also a Cosmosm project, so I'd just like to touch on this. Essentially, we have a Cosmosm VM on our chain. This is the first time somebody's implemented it on Substrate. And essentially what this allows is the 30+ Cosmosm projects to deploy on Picasso. So similar to how you could just copy and paste your EVM projects amongst different EVM chains, you can now do this and deploy an outpost from Cosmos to the Polkadot ecosystem. So Stargaze is one who we're speaking to, and a lot of these Cosmosm projects are interested in using XCM. So it's going to be a tough challenge to explain to them how to use XCM, because I don't know who uses it these days. But yeah, if you have any other use cases in mind, please let us know. Happy to go over it with you. All right, cool. So I explained sort of Centauri, how IBC is working outside of Cosmos, how it's working on Polkadot. Now this is how we're going to build upon the IBC. So essentially, we don't want the end user to be bridging. Like bridging is should be done in the background. Like the user experience of bridging should be abstracted away. So the way we're doing that is via the XCVM. So you can consider the XCVM similar to current cross-chain SDKs out there. So there are sort of Axelar, Layer 0. These are all bridges that rely on trusted architecture. So with Composable's virtual machine, initially we called it XCVM. We're going to be renaming it soon because Polkadot also have an XCVM, but I'll just refer to it as XCVM in this talk. So like with Layer 0 and Axelar, essentially their bridges rely on trusted architecture. So if you want to build these user experiences where the complexity is abstracted, you can, however, your funds are at risk. So with Composable XCVM, you're only relying on the trust of IBC and the trust of XCM messaging. So what it allows you to do is, yeah, the Cosmos VM is actually why we, like the XCVM is basically the Cosmos VM on Picasso. So the reason why we implemented the Cosmos VM was because like Polkadot has the ink VM, however, not many people use it. There's no developer community. We can adopt it later on at a stage where we have developers and apps with ink. However, right now there's just nobody using it. So the reason why we chose Cosmos VM is because it was built with IBC in mind. It is perfect for cross-chain activity. So if you would like to, have a contract like this example here, where a user is via one contract LPing into a DEX on Polkadot, taking out a loan from their LP token on Mars protocol, on Osmosis, and then bridging their tokens to Ethereum. So the user doesn't really care, essentially. This sort of an example. So this is like an example of what the app would look like, right? We'd refer to it as like an XCVM super app where a user just enters the app, connects their wallet. He doesn't care what AMM he's using. He doesn't care what lending protocol he's using. Essentially, he doesn't care what chain he's on. Whether he's interacting on Polkadot or Ethereum or Cosmos or Near or Solana, yeah, the user doesn't really care what chain he's relying on. So you can, our head of design sort of uses a good analogy. Essentially, when I'm in London, I'm using the EE network. When I'm here, I'm connected to Orange. When I go to the US, I'm using the T-Mobile network. I don't care about what network I'm using for my SIM card, right? I'm just using the functionality, which is getting internet, making calls, making text messages. I don't really care about what network I'm using. So in the same way, we want to build the XCVM where users can enter an app and they don't care about if they're using Osmosis or Uniswap or Moonbeam or Polkadot or Picasso. Like, the idea is to just provide the end user with what he wants and the best execution possible. So that's the whole focus of the XCVM. We expect the V0 to come out later this quarter as well. But this is like, to get an app like this, probably we're looking at Q1 2024. This is just something I would mention. I don't have much time, but essentially, now that we have Centauri live, we're looking to set up proposals on both the Cosmos Hub and also the Polkadot Treasury. The idea is to bootstrap liquidity in both ecosystems. So that means taking DOT from the Polkadot Treasury and setting up liquidity pools in Cosmos, and vice versa, taking Atom from the Atom Treasury and getting Atom bootstrapped in the Polkadot ecosystem. So if you'd like to collaborate on any of these proposals, happy to do them with you. If you'd like to discuss it as well, I'm happy as well to do that. The goal is to not use these funds, but rather bootstrap liquidity. So it's not like we're going to be spending any of the DOT or Atom that are received should these proposals pass. The goal is to just bootstrap liquidity and utilize DOT as an asset outside of the Polkadot ecosystem. So yeah, if you have any questions, these are sort of our websites. You can check them out and follow us on Twitter. Thank you.